Hello students, good afternoon. This video is the third and final video in the series on how to create a magazine cover using Pixlr. This video will cover how to add headlines and captions onto your magazine cover and just general layout tips. If you have not placed your photograph into a vertical document or added a title bar, please stop this video and go back and watch those videos. This will only focus on headlines, captions, and then general how to create emphasis in your headlines. So when we're looking at laying out our headlines, the key thing is to think about hierarchy. So on a magazine cover, there's always a title bar, and that is always the largest and biggest font on the page. Usually it's also at the top and it's centered. But then there is either one or more headlines and captions underneath. And as you look at the text, and as you look at the samples on the slide, just notice that the font gradually shrinks as you get closer and closer and closer and further down the page. So when you're looking at designing a headline and caption, typically the headline is the largest thing, and then the caption is a little bit smaller. Other things to notice is that in this case, the headline is a much more decorative or fancy font. When you are choosing fonts that match, think about opposites, whether it's thick versus thin, or old-timey versus modern, or light versus dark, or serif versus sans serif, which is another way of saying old-timey versus modern. So in this example, there's like a very decorative, thick font paired with a very thin, modern font. Also on this example and a couple of the other examples I've shown in class, there's an example of like a sticker style on there as well. And they are also using a little bit of color pops of pink to kind of help grab your attention. The key thing to think about when you're choosing fonts, you want to stick to at most 3 fonts. It's okay if you change the color of those 3 fonts or the size of those 3 fonts, but you don't want to have too many fonts. So in this example, there's probably just 2. There's like the old-timey serif font for the 17 title bar, and then there's a very boxy, blocky sans serif font for all of the headlines. And they just change the size and those kind of things, and just add little tiny touches of color to help make each headline stand out. But you do not want to have like 3 or 4 different, you don't want to have 4 or 5 different fonts just like going all over the place. As you lay out your text, you also want to think about putting your headlines and captions in the negative space. This is usually the area around your subject. Also, what typically happens is if their headlines and captions are on the left-hand side of the page, they will be aligned to the left. If they're on the right, they will be aligned to the right. So if you're at the phase where you're adding headlines, take a look at the magazines that you're basing this off of, right? So Rolling Stone magazine tends to have kind of a list style where everything is on the one side or the other, and then all of the font is aligned to that edge. In this example from entertainment, you can see that everything on the left is aligned to the left. Everything on the right is aligned to the right. It's very rare, but occasionally they'll put something in the middle like this where it's a center alignment, but that's just because I think they did not want to cover her hands on the side of this Vogue magazine. So with that, let's get into how do we lay out text. So I'm in here, I'm going to create some sort of Rolling Stone mock-up cover. So I want to think about my headlines. So when I'm designing a headline, get this out of here, I want to click the text tool and then just draw a box where I want it to go. Now it will try to kind of make, right now I have my font set really big because I was doing some tests in class. So I'm going to try and resize it to kind of fit into. As you're looking for fonts, you want to pick any other font other than Arial. Arial is like the most basic, most boring font. Every PowerPoint presentation you've ever watched probably has Arial in it, and it immediately puts people to sleep. There are a lot of other examples of fonts that are modern, edgy, have a little bit more boxy look to them. So try to look and see if there are others, any other font other than Arial to create your text. And it will put like a little Latin phrase in there so you can kind of see what it's going to look like as you pick it. I'm going to pick kind of like Brooklyn because it's a little bold. It's different from the title bar in that it's more boxy. The title bar has that kind of old-timey vibe. So now I'm going to choose my color and my text. My background is light, so I want to think about what contrasts well with a light background. So in this case, I'm going to pick a dark text, and I'm going to put, rock and roll, or rockin' through the pandemic. Now, this caption, as of right now, it's on the left-hand side, so I want to align it to the left. To do that, I will go up into the Format menu and hit Align Left. And so now it's over here. If I want to change it so that the is on the next page, I just go there and I hit Enter. And now it's kind of placed to the side. I could move all of this over here, but just given the layout of this magazine cover, I think I'm going to try and line everything up down this left-hand side. Other things you can do, so I will make this is going to be my headline, so I'll make it a little bigger. Oh, that's good. And then I'll put another text box underneath that, and then I'll put a smaller font. So I'll take that same font size and I'll just say if the last one was like 50, this one will be 40. And I'll put interview with artist and educator Charles Kuchla. And again, because it's on the left, I'm going to align it to the left. It will like default to the right-hand side. I know it's kind of annoying, but you can kind of try as best as you can to line it up. I might, because and kind of covers my ear, I'm going to take this and just enter and put that here. It's really up to you how you get it to fit in there. You can also play with like letter spacing to make the letters a little more wider or thinner if it just doesn't quite fit. So let me see if that actually works better. Yeah, I think I can do that. So let me just make this smaller. That way it doesn't cover my ears. Perfect. So I've got one, and there's a little bit of contrast, but the key thing is now, what if you have a very busy background and you need to cover something in the background to make your next caption stand out? Looking at, some of these Rolling Stone magazines, what they'll do is they'll put kind of like a sticker or a ticket style in there. So you can do that very easily in Pixlr by just drawing a text box for your next headline. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Not the text yet. I'm going to delete that, a shape. Go to the shape tool and kind of do a rectangle, and boom. So this is going to be kind of like a header style. You could also, if you didn't like the boxy style, you could put like a circle in there. And if you hold shift, it will give you a circle. So say, for example, you wanted like a red circle. Let me pick that exact color from the logo. So now I have kind of a red circle, and I could even put this behind, not behind my picture, behind the text that I added. But I don't think it really goes with the aesthetic of the magazine. But I'll put one here, and I'll just kind of do my next headline in here. So I'll add a new text layer, and I'll call this one, what am I going to call this one? The rhythm and blues of Zoom. And again, I want to make sure I stick with my font choice, which was Brooklyn. But I might change the color of this one to a different color because I'm trying to fit it into this circle. So now let me make this a little bigger because this is just a headline. And put that in there. So that's one thing you can do to get it, like if you have a very busy background and you need to cover something. Other things you can do to make it stand out from your background is, so say I'm going to go back to that shape tool. Maybe I want to just make this white text. Let me go text. And instead of going up here into styles or into format, I'll just add a shadow and then make it a little darker by changing the opacity and the distance. So now it just has a little bit of shadow underneath it, so it's starting to look like it pops out. That's a great tool. Other things up here in style that are nice for making things pop out, particularly on a white background. If we turn off shadow, would be like adding an outline. So here is what it looks like with an outline. Very thin outline, but it will stand out against white if you have white on white. So we talked a little bit about changing the size. We talked a little bit about adding a background color. Say I wanted to make this white text. So I can make this white, but I still want it to stand out against the background. Also within styles, there's this thing called background. And now it immediately added a little box behind the whole section, but say I want it just around each individual line. So now it gave me 2 lines of text, and I can play with the formatting to make those lines closer or further apart to kind of get it to right where I want it to. So I've got 2 headlines. I do think maybe this is going to be good over here. Just kind of roll that out. For your magazine cover, you want a minimum of 2 headlines, either about yourself, about what's inside the magazine, or just something that has to do with the picture. Other things that you can do when you're working on your design, take a look around. So some of these add like a little title bar. They add little bands to separate each individual header. In this example with Juice World, there's a lot of examples of that background border. But the key thing is once you've added your 2 headlines and byline, or headlines and captions, what other little features can you do to make it look more realistic? Other things I've seen, some people put like when the magazine was published, or like you could put, I think in some of these food magazines that we've looked at, they have like a subheader about what's inside. Maybe there's like a little second title bar about the issue, like it's the activism issue or the education issue or just something. Just thinking about all those little features that you could do to add to make it look more realistic. So with that, when you're finished with your two headlines and you've placed your title bar in there, just File, Save, and then save it as a JPEG. Quality is maximum. Download and attach it to Google Classroom. If you have any questions about this part, please email me and we can set up a time to meet. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing your finished magazine covers.